And good morning to my folks here down under in Sydney, Australia, folks in Melbourne, and members of the Listen, Innovate, Grow community over in New Zealand, and to friends, family, colleagues back in Canada, US. Good afternoon, good morning, and welcome. I'm Michael Haynes, SME B2B Customer and Marketing Strategy Advisor, and welcome to Breaking Through in B2B, which is a show out to help SMEs to provide insights, ideas, and inspirations to help you recover and move your business forward to not just survive, but also thrive. Today is the first of my guest spotlight SME series, where I'm going to be having interviews with SMEs in the global ecosystem to learn from them as to what they're doing in the trenches. It's my great pleasure to welcome Tim Snelling and Sylvie Swim from Palladium Insurance in Ottawa. Good afternoon to you both. Thanks so much for coming on to the show. Great to see you again and glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mike.
Excellent. So to kind of kick things off, it would be great if you can give our viewers and those who will be watching later just a bit of an overview about Palladium Insurance and what you guys do.
Sure. So we are an insurance brokerage. So we offer every type of insurance. We have offerings on the property and casualty side, and then on the life division as well, including estate planning. Tim and I blended our brokerages back in 2013 with a vision to really grow and become specialists in certain niche markets that we were seeing that we could be those specialists and really gain market share where professionals needed expert advice on their insurance needs.
Okay, fantastic.
And we are national.
Yeah. So we're like,
okay, great.
Canada, and work through some Canadian operations with American affiliates.
Excellent. Now, just you mentioned that you're into some specialist niches. For our audience, if you could just talk through what are some of those key niches that you're specializing with respect to insurance, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, sure. So our niches are really around professional medical and dental professionals. So we have a program that extends across Canada. We work with brewers, funeral homes,
and services. Yeah.
Yep. And we really work with professionals that need that extra estate planning side of things.
Yeah. So business owner market, Mike. We also we have a farm assure program. For agri, any step of the agri business. Our denture program, as an example, it's anywhere from a lab that does dentures to implants to a specialist's office, like a perio, endo, orthodontist, to a general practitioner. So we have a program of insurance that covers all of their needs. And certainly through the pandemic, those that were lucky enough to be on our denture program saw the benefit of having coverage for COVID-19.
Okay, great. And that kind of leads me to my next question. Be interesting to understand from your perspective, what have you been seeing as some of the challenges when we look at the Canadian SME market? What were you seeing as some of the challenges during the height of the pandemic? As well as what are some of the things that you're seeing now that Canada seems to be moving along and is progressing to the next norm in terms of that recovery stage? What are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of some of the key challenges from a general business perspective with respect to some of the SMEs that you're exposed to through Palladium?
Sure, those challenges. Oh boy, like as the closures started to hit, in mid-March, it became really about survival, trying to help our own clients stay in business and figure out how they could adapt and evolve so that they could continue to work or to offer their services, whether it was restaurants or professionals and so forth. That was probably.
Yeah, it was a crazy amount of uncertainty, of course, and it was fear. I mean, nothing controls people better than fear, and the uncertainty of are we going to have a business, and then of course we didn't shut down. We had to go into overdrive mode and satisfy all of these claims and get those submitted, get them approved on a one by one basis, which was a monstrous undertaking for Sylvie and her team. And then, of course, we saw the same on the benefit side of the equation. A lot of inquiries, certainly with layoffs. A lot of companies reacted very quickly. It was almost I can't say knee jerk because every business is different and have a different stream, but they're very quick to lay off and close their doors and let their staff go. Some quickly realized that with the government programs of rent and payroll assistance, they were able to maintain their staff. So there's been a fair amount. There was a fair amount in the early days, and it really never did level off. Now we're reopening, and anybody in Canada or certainly in Eastern Ontario who has a child in school can attest to the challenges of, we can't get school bus drivers. There's shortages everywhere. And it's just a question of time, we feel, until, unfortunately, hopefully I'm wrong, but there's a second shutdown.
Yeah. Right. And I think too, when this hit, everybody thinks of insurance. This was a catastrophic event happening globally. The first call they started doing was to us, their insurance brokers. So all of a sudden, as the closures hit, what can we do to help? And then it was, it's excluded for so many people. So it was dealing with all of those questions and trying to assist the best way we could. And then we had a whole gamut of individuals, or our medical and dental professionals, who had coverage. So then we had, thousands of claims to submit. So that whole challenge for our staff, where we also had to go remote.
Okay, so that kind of leads me to my next question. Looking at your business, Palladium itself, I'd be interested to know, how have you had to adapt and evolve both? We'll talk during the pandemic, and then I'd also be quite keen to understand how you're looking to adapt and evolve as we're moving forward. If we can unpack that a bit. So we'll start first back within the height of the pandemic, and then we'll talk about what you're seeing in terms of moving forward.
Sure.
So it unfolded rather quickly. It was actually one of the staff who had a respiratory ailment and felt, concerned about COVID-19. It was very early stages. And then within 2 days, we had made the decision to close the offices completely. And luckily, we're on a cloud-based management system. So it was a matter of making sure that the team had high-speed internet. We have a VoIP system. So making sure that one of our partners was basically running around to every house and verifying their system requirements, getting them a laptop if they didn't have one, all of those things, and making sure our telephony and connectivity to our clients was 100%, and our pipe was 5 by 5, and it was in very short order.
It was.
We were up and running and ready to go. So we were very fortunate that way that we migrated to that platform 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So so that was early stages.
Okay, and so now we're at, here we are at September. It seems as though, from what I'm seeing, on the news and talking to folks, that, Canada is starting to try to, reopen. What are you seeing with respect to some of the needs of your SME clients, such as your professionals in particular? What are some of the needs that you're seeing, and what does it mean for you as Palladium as well, in terms of how you're going to need to adapt as part of, we're in this reopen recovery? So I'd be interested to know, your thoughts in terms of what you're seeing in the market and how you're going to be responding to that.
So what we're seeing in the market mostly is that we are getting a lot of requests to help our clients, especially when it comes to their insurance needs. They're very nervous with, okay, now I didn't have coverage for this, so tell me, what else am I not going to be covered for? So we are fielding a lot of questions, hosting a lot of webinars, and helping our staff work with their client base so that they can really pinpoint different insurance areas that now they should focus on. So we keep coming back to cyber insurance being that next big event that is going to hit you can't stop cyber, right?
Yeah, and in some cases, sorry to interject there, but in some cases, we've seen explosive growth in our clientele. They're anyone working in the online, certainly in telemedicine. Telemedicine, certainly from the province of Ontario, has really taken off for obvious reasons. And so there's been a requirement for that to be able to respond and scale up. Another challenge that we're seeing is the ability for finding staff. Candidly, not necessarily professional staff. It's a CERB might have the Canadian economic recovery benefit. it provided in some situations more of an incentive to not work than to work. I'm just, you know, a small percentage, but we are seeing that with some of our, you know, some of our business owners that they're finding a hard time finding staff to work.
Okay. Right. So, very interesting. So with regards to a couple of things I kind of want to kind of delve in a bit to. So in terms of work, that engaging with your clients, so you're doing a lot of webinars. What else, other things are you doing, Sylvie and Tim, to be listening and tapping in to really understanding what is being required currently, as well as moving forward? Because I know from talking to you, Sylvie, in our previous discussions and also for the book, that that's something you're very strong on in terms of really making sure you're on the pulse with what customers, what your clients are going to be requiring. So what are some of the things that you're doing now to do that, and what will you potentially be doing moving forward to really making sure that you're on the pulse as to what exactly clients are going to be requiring in this next normal phase that we're now in?
For sure. So our objective was to stay in front of our clients so that they knew that we were there to help. So we did invest heavily we already had social media and in our branding campaigns there ready to go, but we heavily invested in that continuance and started, you know, releasing any bit of information for HR purposes or insurance purposes, or what's the next claim that you should be thinking about, or is your business shrinking or growing? What can you do to help yourself in terms of the insurance landscape and the business landscape? So our social media started to release stuff almost every day, blog posts, editorials, where they were invited to call us, whether they were clients or not, just to get our professional opinion. So our phones were ringing a lot. They still are. And to respond to our own clients, you know, we launched a platform. So we have.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So it's an online client platform, much like, you know, the banks would have.
It's an app.
Yeah. It's an app. Much like the banks, right? But, you know, it's a work in progress, but it's absolutely a place where they can contact their broker immediately, but they have access to their policies, they can report claims, and that's where they can actually get access to push notifications of stuff that's going on in areas where we have clients. So it could be weather related, but it could also be things that mean that they, you know, they have to look at something on their policy to make sure that coverage is available. So if you call us, we could help. So, you know, it's going to grow and expand, but as a result of COVID, you know, instead of waiting until the end of Q4 to release it, we decided to release it, you know, right away. Mid-April, it was getting launched and released. And
we had a crazy take-up rate on that as well.
We did.
People did have time, and they did read the emails, and they did take the time to install the application, and they're using it. So that was one of the benefits of having a little extra time, but
for them.
For them, yeah, not us.
For them. So one of the learning we definitely can see is, you know, the need for being that responsive and you know, responding, providing those information requirements that your clients and customers need, and putting it out there in the market, even if it's not in its full complete form, but even a beta version that you can then, I assume, adapt and modify and expand functionality, but being responsive and giving what folks need in response to their urgent needs at that point in time. Fantastic. A couple things I wanted to ask with regard to some of the things that you just raised. First of all, so with the emergence of things like telehealth and some of these explosive growth areas, are there going to be implications in terms of new kinds of offerings that you're going to need to be giving, either new products, new bundles, new information, or how you liaise with your clients? Can you unpack that for our viewers a bit as to what you're seeing in terms of, you mentioned telehealth, and if there's some other explosive growth areas or just changing needs, what are going to be some of the responses that you're going to need to be making to meet some of those needs in some of these emerging areas, telehealth being one of them?
Yeah, for sure. When you think of telehealth or even all these Zoom calls, think of everybody who just went to Zoom, Teams, you name it. Again, I go back to cyber. All of a sudden, you have all of this information going on the web or being streamed. And who are susceptible to being hacked. Your employees are now working remotely, so you need to now consider where's the insurance placed for your staff who have equipment at home, or even the liability with all of these employees working all over the place, and how can you control all of the network? So there's so many considerations, even just around cyber as being one of those emerging needs. So when we talk about our Dentisure, Medisure clients, now that's part of the program. It's been offered over the past 2 years as cyber became an issue, but now we are absolutely recommending a separate specialized cyber policy that responds to what they need. Yeah,
it's crazy. The take-up rate for cyber insurance, Mike, prior to the pandemic was dismal, where the need was incredible, and even for our own operation. Even on our side, so the financial services side of Palladium, we have 12 on the team, and so weekly phishing attacks, phishing attempts. So my staff get emails from me requesting money to be wired or some type of a transaction, and so even for us internally, I mean, it was just, we had to verify. I mean, obviously, it was just some additional steps from a financial management standpoint, but we're definitely saw that during the pandemic for our operation, and we're absolutely seeing that for our clientele.
So are you seeing a more of an uptake now with cyber? Because I know here in Australia and some of the other markets that I've observed from an SME perspective, that's always been the part of insurance that often people kind of disregarded. You know, on the professional indemnity, public liability. If we think from a financial services standpoint, those are often the insurances that people think about. And cyber is like, yeah, whatever. So you are starting to see more of an uptake now.
Oh, absolutely. We're quoting multiple, a day. But the other one that is important to consider is directors and officers insurance. So for privately held corporations, as you're growing, you need to protect your shareholders, your board of directors. And that is something that is very important to consider today. In today's market.
Great. I'd like to kind of circle back to both of those, because I think those are both two very important insurances that all SMEs need to have. So let's circling back to cyber insurance, because cyber insurance now, we're all working remotely now, and like you said, with the Zoom calls, people are working on projects, sometimes very high profile projects where, we're exchanging customer data, financial data, etc. So for your SME owner who is not very versed, who's heard about cyber, doesn't really know a lot about it, what are some of the key initial steps they should be thinking about and doing now that, they've got, even if they're a micro business, whether they're a sole practitioner, what have you, what should be some of their initial steps that they should be doing to move forward to make sure that they've got cyber insurance coverage? And is it the right, and does cyber insurance coverage vary whether I'm a solo practitioner, a micro business, versus whether I'm a larger SME, with 50 plus? Does it matter? Does it make a difference? And what should be some of the initial steps that SME folk could take? If you could kind of give us some tips that would be fantastic.
For sure. So the initial step would be to pull out your commercial general liability policy and see if you have a small cyber endorsement. So a lot of our insurance companies globally have added a small cyber endorsement to the policy, which makes it affordable for a small SME. So, let's be realistic. We have to watch our expenses. So a smaller SME, especially depending on what type of business you are doing, could potentially be serviced by that. But then there's key things you have to look at for your coverage. So having an insurance professional, that it's like having a lawyer and an accountant, you should have an insurance professional in your back pocket, because you have to look at first and third party coverage. Look, I'm an insurance geek, so I could go on and tell you exactly what you need to look at in terms of what you need and how you are deemed to be the custodian of your client's data.
But it's morning there, honey. I don't think we want to
it's okay. It's okay. We've got thick skin, and this is going to be replayed again on a couple of occasions.
So then as your business grows, there becomes a need where 25,000, 50,000 of cyber coverage is like, just won't cut it, right? And so then we structure a separate policy in order to give you the limits you need. But then when you're a medical professional or accountant, lawyer, there are certain coverages that are deemed necessary by the Privacy Commission. And there are also considerations that if you have a potential breach, you have to be notifying that Privacy Commission of that potential. Well, who knows all this, right? You need a cyber coach, and that's what the insurance gives you. So, you know, it's
an instant response. You immediately call. You say, "I've been locked out of my server. This is the circumstance," and they immediately mitigate the situation. Often it may involve them paying the ransom or what have you, and then they'll put some protocols and checks and measures in place to mitigate. And then, as Sylvie had mentioned, in Canada we have the Privacy Act and the PIPEDA. There's also some other medical requirements under those that are and the cost, the major cost in that, Mike, is the cost to notify all of your clients, and the embarrassment, of course, that sorry, we've been hacked, or our data has been compromised, and you may or may not, your data may or may not have been compromised in this action. So
okay, great, thank you for that. So I guess the key learning for all SMEs, irrespective of where they're located, you know, here, South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, elsewhere, is to get advice with regarding to from an insurance professional as to the requirements for your business, because that can vary by the size of the business, what you're operating, what you're dealing with, and to really protect both yourself and your company, as well as for the benefits of protecting your clients and those that you're engaging with. It's really quite important, because as we're seeing from your feedback, there can be some significant implications if you get compromised from an IT perspective. Right. Okay, that's very good to know, because I think cyber security is still something that I think is a bit more on the radar, but I think there's definitely more learnings, more education that SMEs need to be aware of. Really quickly, just want to talk about with respect to directors and officers insurance. I know here in Australia, we have an equivalent to that, and that exists in other markets as well. For those who may not be familiar, can you just give us a quick, really quick snapshot overview of directors and officers insurance, what it is about, and in terms of the SME size landscape, where does that really need to kick in? Is that something more for the micros, the sole practitioners, and the 1 to 4 person organizations, or is it really more for our larger SMEs? If you could just give us a quick overview of what it is, and really at what stage in your SME journey do you really need to be considering that as part of your insurance portfolio to protect your business and your clients?
Sure. So a directors and officers policy is really to protect it's in the name, right? The directors and officers of a privately held corporation. So if you're only one director and one officer, or if it's a husband and wife team, you may not have the need right away, especially depending on what your business is. It's really meant to protect the shareholders as directors and officers of the corporation, especially in contract disputes, or you know, if you're going into a new build, and then there are issues with that new building permits, or you know, you get in trouble with the government. That's what a D&O policy can do. More importantly, it also offers employment liability. So as we talk about COVID and adjusting and seeing what's required for COVID, employment practices liability becomes very important. What happens if your staff gets sick? Or should I be offering benefits to help me, you know, protect my employees?
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind too with D&O, Mike, is that in order to attract the right directors and officers and a talent to your board, we're normally dealing with larger SMEs. You know, we're more on the large scale. If you're looking to hire on and incentivize, bring in some outside talent to guide you and assist you in the growth pattern, they're going to require that insurance. Certainly, most would. I would be, you know, I don't know of any that sit on a board that don't hold a certificate naming them as an additional insured. I certainly would never sit on a board of directors without a certificate of insurance naming me in that capacity. Yeah.
Okay, that's great for that. You really raised some important considerations as to why D&O insurance is quite important as part of protection and is a necessary component for those SMEs as they're continuing to grow and scale. Okay, and so one final question two actually. Well, one question. So for you at Palladium, where to now from here? You know, we're coming up to the end of 2020. Thank goodness. 2021 is up. what is on your view in terms of what are you going to be doing in terms of listening, innovating, and growing? Where to next for Palladium, and what are you guys going to be looking to do at a high level? Don't need to reveal any secrets, but let us know, what are you doing and how are you going to be going about getting there for the benefits of some of our viewers to get some ideas and inspiration of things that they should be thinking about, what they should be doing, taking it from great folks such as yourself.
So our mothership is Ottawa, Eastern Ontario, in Canada. And we've had the pleasure of 2 floods and 2 tornadoes in the past 3 years. Right. So it's been, usually Eastern Ontario is the gem in the insurance crown for Canada. Quite seriously, it's always a very profitable area up until really 3 years ago and the COVID side. So I always say when I'm in meetings with other business owners, and they say, well, what's next? Because, I was saying pandemic for years and years. I'd say earthquake's probably next, and we are due over here. We're due for a table 2 earthquake, but all that half kidding aside, it's explosive growth. We're seeing monster opportunity, certainly on the financial services side. Most people are realizing COVID has changed the mentality. From a life insurance side, where people are saying, wow, this product used to have to be sold to me by somebody. I'm starting to realize I have mortality. What would happen if I got sick, if I became critically ill? How would my family carry on if I was to succumb to an illness or an accident or what have you? Yeah. So the positioning is changing, where we're being more of professional service rather than outright sales. And that was needed. Frankly, the industry did a poor job streamlining it. And it takes issues and circumstances like this to cull the herd and to really separate the professional operator from the run and gun sales type person. So that's definitely what we're.
So Tim, you've raised a good point there, because there's been a lot of discussions around, what is the new form of selling in B2B, which you guys are B2B, and that it has to go moving away from the show up and throw up, give the pitch, that there's now a move to being around education, information, advice, working with your clients. So is that going to be a key component of as part of your growth strategy moving forward in terms of how you go about positioning?
It's a perfect question. Absolutely. So to give an example, that we do a fair amount of employee benefits for small, medium size, up to 5,000. We have a few carriers that are clients with over 5,000 employees nationally. And we had just recently a interview with a client who was interested in obtaining some information and starting up an employee benefits plan and a defined, basically an RSP or a pension program. So what we did was we said, well, if you're looking at some other opportunities, why don't you interview a few brokers, and you have to make a choice, because normally we all have access, or we should, if you're an independent advisor, have access to the same market. So we ended up setting up a call. There were four of my team on the call with 2 of the clients, 2 C-suite of the client, and they were impressed with the fact that quite candidly, we will fight and we will earn your business. This is our value proposition. This is what we bring to the equation. And this is the benefit of dealing with Palladium Insurance Financial Services and the team of our team approach. But quite candidly, we don't, if you're not going to engage in us, it's similar to, Mike, you can't go to your CA, have them complete a year end, and then say, well, thanks for the year end, I'm going to shop it around. Right. And take it to another CA firm, or even your dentist. You can't go into your dentist to have dental work done, or can you give me a quote on all this? I mean, after it's just very rare. So we are seeing that shift. We were seeing it before. Certainly, professionals do value professional advice. They don't like 1-800 call centers. There's a time and a place for that business. It's just, frankly, it's not with us. We've changed our focus in that capacity, and some clients, they're better dealt elsewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, okay. So, very interesting. So that you're seeing that move towards that engagement, that advice, and really working with clients. That is really the new selling way forward. Fantastic. And so, one final question, just to wrap up: what would be, 2 or 3 key tips that you'd like to give your fellow SMEs with regards to where we're at now in this next normal, as they call it? 2 or 3 key tips. Could be insurance related. Be keen if you could give 1 or 2 tips in terms of from a business perspective, in terms of recovery and growth. What 2 or 3 key tips would you like to share with our audience before we conclude?
Yeah. Well, definitely staying positive is key. That's a decision we all have to make. And as entrepreneurs, it's so easy to get caught down in the negativity and a lot of the buzz going on. So be that difference maker. If you're across from a client, make their day. And it can just be about a laugh. It can be about anything else, but staying positive is paramount, whether it's in leadership roles or others. Like my executive vice president, no matter the day we've had, if I call him, how are you doing? He said, fantastically awesome is always his answer. Yeah. So feel free to steal that. And because we do get to choose every morning, we get to choose how our day is going to be prior to it starting, and that's what I would recommend. Yeah. Absolutely. It's basic, but
excellent.
I think it's important to realize that opportunities exist, right? Through all of this, take the time to look at your business and sit down, think about it, because it's not all doom and gloom. There is an opportunity. There's an ability to think outside the box for what you do. It doesn't mean spending lots of money, but there is that opportunity. Talk it out with some people that you trust, friends or other, business coaches, but that opportunity is for everybody's business to take it to the next level and work hard.
Work hard.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely. I fully great suggestion. I'm a big believer in terms of that last point that you raised, all of your points. So that last point that you raised, Sylvie, in terms about identifying opportunities, listening to the market, listening to your customers, listening to your colleagues. It's tapping in, being in tune with your colleagues, your customers. What's going on in your business. And if you use some different approaches about listening, which is something I'll talk to in some further editions on Breaking Through in B2B, there are opportunities for all of us to continue on. Well, I'd just like to thank you both, Tim and Sylvie. Thank you very much for taking the time to be on Breaking Through in B2B. So for those of you that like to get more information on what you can do to survive and thrive and take your business forward, please visit my website, listeninnovategrow.com. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Until next time, take care, be safe. I'm Michael Haynes. Have yourselves a great day.
All right, thanks, Mike.